So I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, a person that Time magazine once identified as one of the most influential people in the world. So please welcome the founder of Wikipedia, Jimmy Wales.
Very good. Thank you very much. It's very good to be here. I actually didn't read over all the materials they sent me except for what I'm supposed to speak about. I actually had no idea what a huge audience this is. This is an amazing crowd. It's a really big space, so I'm very excited. So I'm going to talk today about the future of internet business, social media, importance of entrepreneurship, lots of different topics. And then afterwards, we're going to have some time for questions. And so I encourage you to think of some good questions, and we'll try to have some fun. So I'll start off by talking about Wikipedia, of course, the thing that people are always very interested to hear about. And Wikipedia started with a very powerful, simple idea, and that's for all of us to imagine a world in which every single person on the planet is given free access to the sum of all human knowledge. And that's what we're doing at Wikipedia. Every element of this vision statement is important. When I talk about every single person on the planet, that means that we're inherently global in our mission. When I talk about free access, that means something very special by free, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And the sum of all human knowledge helps to define what Wikipedia is and what Wikipedia is not. So, what is Wikipedia? So first of all, I always like to ask, how many people here have used Wikipedia? I say that just a little exercise, you know. But the real question is, how many people have edited Wikipedia? So it's good, yeah. It's a good percentage, is what I would expect at a conference called Login. But it's actually very, very interesting sometimes to see the different audiences and who has edited a lot and who hasn't. And it actually surprisingly parallels how successful Wikipedia is in a particular language. And in a particular country. I was just in Korea Monday, and in Korea, interestingly enough, although it's a very highly connected country with lots and lots of people who are online all the time, very well educated, 100% literacy rate, the Wikipedia has always been rather small there, and so I was very interested. I was speaking at a university, and I thought, well, surely at a university most people will have edited Wikipedia, even though it's smaller, and it was a very tiny percentage of the audience had ever edited Wikipedia. That's of course not true here in Lithuania, which has had quite a successful Lithuanian Wikipedia, despite being a small country with a small number of speakers. It's always been, quite an exciting project. So, what is Wikipedia? Wikipedia is a freely licensed encyclopedia written by thousands of volunteers in many languages. And so, when I talk about free licensing or free access to knowledge, what do I mean by that? Well, the first thing is fairly obvious. It doesn't cost anything to use Wikipedia. In the free software movement, there's this old joke or old saying, free as in speech, not free as in beer. Free beer is great. Somebody gives you free beer, you drink it, wonderful. Everybody loves a free beer. But we're talking about something more important, more fundamental. We're talking about free speech. So in Wikipedia, everything in Wikipedia is freely licensed. So you have the right to copy, to modify, to redistribute modified versions, and you can do all of those things commercially or non-commercially. So we really are, culturally, we're from the free software movement, from the open source world, and that's fundamentally what we're all about. We try to make sure that everything in Wikipedia can be reused and redistributed because we think that's a part of our overall mission. We want to get free knowledge to everyone, and this is the most effective way to do that. What do I mean by the sum of all human knowledge? Well, what I mean by this is that Wikipedia is a very particular type of reference work. It's an encyclopedia. So Wikipedia is not a textbook. Wikipedia is not a library. Wikipedia is not a newspaper. Wikipedia is not YouTube. I love funny cat videos as much as anybody, but they don't belong in Wikipedia. There are a lot of things that don't belong in Wikipedia. What's interesting about this is that it's one of the things that helped, even in the very early days, helped to unify our community with a clear understanding of what we were doing. If I say encyclopedia article about the Eiffel Tower, Everyone in this room has more or less the same idea of what that is. You can imagine it should have the history, when it was built, who was the architect, why it was built, what was the cultural reaction. There should be some pictures. We might quibble about the details, and believe me, as Wikipedians, we quibble about the details forever. But in essence, we know what it is we're trying to accomplish, and that's been very, very helpful in making sure that the community can actually move forward. If we said Wikipedia is an open website for anything you want to do, it wouldn't have coalesced into a clear community with a clear purpose. So, as a result of all this, we now have over 20 million articles across 270 different languages. I find this number a little bit optimistic. There are actually about 200 languages that have at least 1,000 articles, and these last 70 languages are smaller than 1,000 articles. So I really feel like once we have 1,000 entries, that's when there is a small community there. They begin to think about themselves as a community, think about outreach. It's usually 5 to 10 people, really regular users, and another 20 or 30 who are around sometimes. And that's when they really can start to really grow, to really think about the future and how they can do something really great. We have now nearly 4 million entries in English. We have over 1 million in French, German, and Dutch, over 500,000 in several other languages. In fact, we do quite well on a per capita basis across all of the European languages. But beyond that, we have China and Japan are quite large, and beyond that, it's a lot of smaller projects, smaller languages, and we still have a lot of work to do. So at the Wikimedia Foundation, we're turning our focus increasingly to the languages of the developing world and really trying to see what are the technical difficulties that they face, how can we help them build Wikipedia in their own language. One of the languages that people are always very interested in is Chinese, so I should speak about Chinese for a moment. Chinese language Wikipedia is quite a large project, but one of the main reasons for that is that the number of Chinese-speaking people outside mainland China is more than the number of Germans, period. So lots and lots of people outside mainland China can have participated forever in the project. Inside mainland China, we were banned for 3 years, and so for 3 years Wikipedia was completely inaccessible. We made a decision, a principled decision, that access to knowledge, access to information is a fundamental human right, and we'll never compromise on the issue of censorship. So even at a time when Google went in and was participating in censorship in China, we chose not to do that, and as a result we were banned for 3 years. Eventually we became unblocked. It was just before the London Olympics, and so today Wikipedia is broadly accessible in China across all the languages, but with the exception that the Chinese still very much filter and censor their network. We can't stop them from doing it, but we don't participate in it. And what do they censor? They censor all of the things that you would imagine they censor. They censor content relating to the Tiananmen Square incident. They censor things having to do with Taiwanese independence. Lately they've been censoring anything having to do with Liu Xiaobo, who won the Nobel Peace Prize as a democracy activist in China, and the artist Ai Weiwei, who's in a constant battle with the government with his art. These are the kinds of things that China is currently censoring. However, we know that people in China are very often able to get around the censorship and read those things anyway, and so we're really happy that at least people are able to get access to Wikipedia. In large part, and we will continue to fight censorship anywhere in the world. So another interesting question about the global nature of Wikipedia is always the question of how does the content differ across different languages. It's actually it's very interesting because it turns out that in many, many ways the content is actually quite similar across different languages. There's a certain Wikipedia style which is similar. Some of the languages, of course, the smaller languages don't have as much detail yet and so forth. But by and large, it turns out that there's a certain geek culture that transcends national culture. So obviously we're very good in Star Trek and Star Wars and things like this in every language. I had a really interesting a story about Lithuania. I was here a few years ago and I visited with a member of parliament. Unfortunately, I can't remember his name, and anyway I couldn't pronounce it even when I knew it. But a lovely guy who was very interested in encyclopedias. He had taken part in a huge encyclopedia project here, and he had printed out 4 Wikipedia entries from the 4 languages that he could read. So it was one from English, one from Lithuanian, Polish, and German, and it was about a battle, and I don't remember the name of the battle, but you might all know it from school, battle between Lithuania and Poland. And apparently, he said, what's interesting is the Lithuanian Wikipedia has the Lithuanian version of the events, and the Polish Wikipedia has the Polish version of the events. In fact, it is a legitimate historical controversy. The historians are undecided, so it's not just sheer nationalism, it's just that there are different perspectives on what happened, one slightly more favorable to the Lithuanians, one slightly more favorable to the Poles. But then he said, well, the German Wikipedia, their entry was quite small, so he just said it didn't cover it very well. But in the English Wikipedia, he found both stories were told, and it was quite clearly explained why there was a historical controversy and so forth. I thought that was a really interesting story. Now, hopefully over time, every version would contain all of that, so that if you go to learn about this and you're in Lithuania and you're reading Lithuanian, you don't just get one side, you actually can understand the other side of the story. You can understand, why do Germans believe this silly stuff, or why do the Poles believe this silly stuff? And you can begin to have a better dialogue amongst people from different areas if they've learned each other's stories. We did a little study, a very preliminary study, but I think it's quite interesting to look at, looking at what do people read across different languages and how does that differ. So, as I say, the content, the style and the tone and what we cover is very similar, but what people read turns out to be somewhat different. If we take a look here, in order from left to right, this is English, Chinese, Japanese, French, German, Russian, and Spanish. One of the things that you'll see immediately, if you look, is the large green bar for Japan is pop culture. If you know anything about Japan, this makes perfect sense. The Japanese do love pop culture. They love English pop culture, American pop culture, Japanese pop culture. It's a very big part of life in Japan, and so it's no surprise that the Japanese read a lot about pop culture. Other things that are somewhat interesting, if you see the Germans are the most interested in geography.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying. Not sure it's a good thing. I don't make that joke when I'm in Germany. Still a little touchy about that. The other one is if you take a look at sex. Of course, everybody knows sex is an interesting topic on the internet. And it was in the list of top topics in every language except for French and Spanish. I was a little puzzled by this until someone explained to me it's because the French and the Spaniards are actually having sex, and I guess the rest of us are just reading about it on the internet. Well, I like to joke about this, but the truth is when you really do dig a little bit deeper and you look at things in politics, history, geography, some of the differences that we see in what people are reading are actually more similarities than differences. People are always very interested in their local politicians, they're interested in their local culture, and if I'm interested in my local politician and you're interested in your local politician, in one sense we're reading something different, but in another sense, as human beings, we're interested in the same things, and so there is a certain commonality everywhere. So we now have over 460 million people using the website every month. This is a pretty astonishing figure. It means that we're larger than many of the top newspapers in the world combined. And so one of the questions that we should have is the question of who writes Wikipedia. Why should we want to know who the Wikipedians are? Well, here's one reason why. This is a comment somebody posted on Twitter. She says, yesterday I asked one of my students if she knew what an encyclopedia is, and she said, is it something like Wikipedia? So, if you imagine for yourself a student today who's 15 years old. Wikipedia is 11 years old. So when that student was 4, that's when Wikipedia was created. So pretty much the entire time that they've known how to read, Wikipedia existed. And certainly in the last 5 years, from when they were 10 years old until 15, Wikipedia was very, very big, a very important part of our culture. And so for a whole generation that's coming up next, Wikipedia is really core to the infrastructure of the world. It's core to how they find things out. And so I think that puts on all of us in the Wikipedia community, and actually all of us in the world, because in a certain sense, as this is an open humanitarian project for everyone, it puts a big responsibility on us to think about How can we make Wikipedia as good as it possibly can be? Who are the people who write Wikipedia? It's quite an important cultural question. So by the numbers, some of the things we see is that the Wikipedia community is about 87% male, which I'm not 100% sure of the ratio in this room, but it's kind of like this room. It looks like we've got a lot more men than and the average age is around 26, we have about double the percentage of PhDs in our community relative to the general public. So these demographics they're okay in some respects and not okay in other respects. We really don't think being 87% male is a good thing. It's something that we very much would like to see change over time. There are a lot of reasons for it. One of the core reasons, and I always have to be very careful how I say this, because I'm definitely not saying women aren't good at computers. That is not my point at all. But editing Wikipedia is too geeky and too technical, and this excludes lots and lots of people. It excludes my father, who is, as a hobby, he's an expert in old cars. He doesn't edit Wikipedia because when he clicks on edit and he sees complicated editing codes, he just says, I don't want to break anything, so he doesn't want to do it. So what we've inadvertently done is created a filter where we keep out all but the most technically savvy people, the computer geeks, and the computer geeks are 87% male. So if we want to correct all kinds of imbalances in the community, we need to make sure that people who are geeks but not computer geeks feel comfortable editing, which means we have to change the editing interface. And so we're investing in making the editing interface much easier to use, much more like a word processor, much more powerful, because it's silly that people have to go through all the convoluted steps we make them do to get ordinary work done on the site. So that's one of the big things that we're focused on. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a video, and I'm hoping, we haven't really tested the sound, I'm hoping the sound is up. Ooh, it might be way up. Because one of the things, when people are just using Wikipedia and you're interacting with it as a website, it's easy to just think of it in the abstract. It's this piece of work, it's this thing on the internet. But I think it's important to think about who are the Wikipedians, and this video helps you by showing you some of the Wikipedians. You can see what they're like and get a bit of a human feel for the project. So here we go.
No, I don't have superpowers at all. No. You could totally do it.
I pushed the button and saved the text. Ooh. It was exciting.
You just changed Wikipedia. You just added your own contribution to Wikipedia.
I read an article in The Guardian about this online encyclopedia which everybody can contribute to, and I thought, whoa, maybe I can contribute too as well.
I edited it the first time and I think I got addicted to it. I don't get paid anything. I just do it for, something to do in my free time, that's it.
You may start doing it for an idea because you believe in it, but you end up with friends, you end up with lovers, you end up with wonderful discussions, you end up with new ideas, you end up with the new books you're going to write.
You're not writing the article alone. You write a piece and somebody else goes like, hey, I have more, and together you can create articles that are pages long, which you can't by yourself.
Then you have success. You always see, okay, what I've done was successful, and this is great because editing is a great feeling every time you do it.
As I say, when I read about Wikipedia, I decided that this is maybe where I would fit in, and I did.
Right. That's that video. So one of the amazing things about the Wikimedia Foundation is that we are a non-profit organization. We are a charity. And that is quite unique and different, and therefore there will be no Wikipedia IPO, like the Facebook IPO, so we can all be spared that agony. As a charity, we're actually a very small nonprofit organization. We have about 100 employees now, and about 100,000 volunteers, depending on how you measure it. And so, when you think about this, the Wikimedia Foundation is really the smallest part of the overall movement. And that's a really important thing to understand, that everything about what we do is very, very community-driven. And it's the community. It's people like you who come to the site, donate their time, the people that you saw in the video, who just say, I think this is worth doing. This is something that helps the world be a better place. I could be playing World of Warcraft. I could be doing whatever. Instead, I think I'll write a few things in Wikipedia today. So I think we owe them all a a huge debt of gratitude for that. So since we're going to talk about entrepreneurship, that's my big theme for today, I think one of the great questions to ask is, how did I get here? People love to drag me up and say, oh, you're successful, tell us about your success. And I think the most important thing to understand about me and how I got here is this: failure. Jimmy Wales is good at it. So I'm going to tell you about some of my fabulous failures over the years, with an idea here to help you think in a new way about what it means to be an entrepreneur and what entrepreneurship is really all about. So this is Chicago. I used to live in Chicago. I worked as a futures and options trader in Chicago. Great job, loved it. And I would work at a desk every day. And I had this brilliant business idea. I was a programmer and I was working on the internet and so forth already at that time. My brilliant business idea is that people were using very inefficient ways to get food at work. You could fax in your order, you could call, send somebody to get the food. And I thought, we'd just put this all on the internet. The whole process of ordering your lunch in a downtown office building should be on the internet, which, by the way, today is a very big business in Chicago. But of course, at that time, the result was failure. Jimmy Wales is good at it. In 1996, restaurant owners looked at me like I was from Mars. And you can imagine walking in and saying, we want to put your menu on the internet. And they were like, what is an internet? I've never heard of that. So it was a bit difficult then. So that didn't work out. And so then I had an idea, quite a clever idea. This was, I think, even pre-Google, or about the same time that Google launched. I had an idea for a search engine. There's a few things that are brilliant about this. First of all, the name of the search engine was 3 Apes. I mean, isn't that genius? And it even had a great slogan: type your search and the apes will find it. Can you tell me why that didn't take off? I don't know. But I did have, I thought, a brilliant business idea. We would have pay-per-click advertising. Okay, that's not such a bad idea. And there would be 2 ways to pay. You could either actually pay for advertising on the site, or you could send traffic to the site and earn credits and then use that to pay for advertising. I thought, well, this will be a way it'll start to get popular because people will link to it. They don't have a lot of money, they can link to it. If they do have money, they can pay for advertising. It's a circular system, it'll work really well. The result? Failure. Jimmy Wales is good at it. Chinese spammers took over the site within 3 months. I mean, they were sending quite a bit of traffic in Chinese and demanding payment. It was really quite a confusing situation. I remember at one point, one of them threatened to send a nuclear bomb to the U.S. Maybe I'll change to a different business. I don't want to be responsible for nuclear terrorism. So then I had the idea of a free encyclopedia. This was Nupedia, the predecessor to Wikipedia. Again, brilliant business idea, a free encyclopedia for everyone. I mean, that sounds great, right? It would be written by experts. I hired a PhD in philosophy to design it. The result? Well, failure. Jimmy Wales is good at it. I spent about $250,000 on the first 12 articles. Not exactly cost effective, but I keep them by my bed. I read them every night. I will get my money's worth eventually. So this didn't work, and it was getting to be very frustrating. The reason it didn't work, it was very top-down. It was very difficult for people to participate. So in frustration with this, then I had a really dumb idea. Free encyclopedia for everyone. I was kind of stuck on that one. But I would, open the website, let anybody edit it. Will be no advertising, actually no sane business plan of any kind whatsoever. And what was the result? Success. Even Jimmy can do it sometimes. So Wikipedia, of course, has become a massive success. We're the number 5 website in the world, changing the face of knowledge forever, and it's very inspirational. The project of Wikipedia is very inspirational. It takes me all around the world and meet great people like you, and so it's really wonderful. But I'm an entrepreneur. I'm restless. I'm always thinking of what's next. What can I do? That would be a good idea. So I went back to the idea of a search engine, Wikia Search. This was actually, I still think, a very, very good idea. Certainly, because of the success of Wikipedia, which was already very famous when I launched the Wikia Search Engine project, we got an enormous amount of press. There's me on the cover of Fast Company, Google's worst nightmare. I don't know how true that was, but my mother bought 10 copies. So, it was worth it. Mom still keeps it out, at home when people come in. There's my son, Google's worst nightmare. Failure. Jimmy Wales is good at it. So the search engine project, although I was quite pleased with the progress of the technology, and I still think that the core idea, which was an open source search engine where different programmers, developers, people from all over could contribute modules to the code to handle different kinds of queries, different types of searches. I think the core idea was quite good, and the software was progressing quite nicely, but the search engine is a very big thing, a very expensive thing to build, and we started and we spent quite a bit of money on it, and the plan was we'll spend some money on it, we'll get it going, we'll see how it's going, and we'll go out and we'll raise a second round of capital. But in the economic downturn, it was clearly not going to be possible. The venture capitalists were all in a state of panic. It was going to take several million more dollars. We didn't see any way to raise the money for it. And so we decided that we had to close the project. But at the same time, we had been working along on some other things at Wikia. And so the other brilliant business idea is to build on the Wikipedia model, empower everyone to build the rest of the library, focus on making it easy to use, think about topics that have good ad revenue. And what was the result? Success. Even Jimmy can do it a second time. So where an encyclopedia was the start, a library is much, much bigger. There are many different kinds of things that people can collaborate on. And so the idea is, what do we do beyond Wikipedia? I mean, one of the things that I'm really passionate about, and that Wikipedia has been really the forerunner for, is the idea that we're moving into an era when media is no longer top-down, but is participatory. But too often, participatory media is just people yelling at each other in the comment boards and things like this. And I think there's still a lot of opportunities in helping to design spaces and design software to help people collaborate on what they want to accomplish and do so effectively to generate new kinds of media. So, hello Wikia. Wikia's been doing amazingly well. We now have about 65 million monthly visitors. Our traffic continues to just go up and up and up organically. We don't have the kind of buzz that, say, an Instagram has, but we have about double the traffic that Instagram has. So, well, there you go. We're ranked 36 in the US, so it's quite a big site. And just to give you a little bit of an idea of what we do there, how many people here know the TV show Lost? Do you know Lost? Yeah? Okay, yeah, good. Everybody knows Lost. How many people actually understood the TV show Lost? There's one guy over here, and I think it's because he probably was reading Lostpedia while he was watching the show. So Lostpedia is this amazing wiki community where people documented throughout the series Lost. They documented every single episode, everything that happened in the episode. Just to give you some idea, if you saw Sawyer on the beach reading a book, the Lostpedians will write an article about that book. Maybe it's a Jane Austen book. Maybe it's Pride and Prejudice. So what would the Wikipedia entry on Pride and Prejudice be? Will it be the history of the novel and why it was important, what happens, and so on? But the Lostpedia entry would try to theorize, what did it mean that, give you the basic summary of what the novel is about, but what did it mean? Why was Sawyer reading it? How did it relate to other plot elements? Because the show was quite a rich tapestry of allusions and hints and metaphors and so forth. And so it was a guide to all that kind of thing to really help people understand the show in a much deeper way. One of the interesting things that came out of it is I met J.J. Abrams, who was the creator of Lost, and he told me, I love Lostpedia, it's so great. And then there was this quote in a magazine. This is an interview with Carlton Cuse, who was the head writer on the show. And he said, the writers were stumped. They were looking to make a reference to Canada, except no one was exactly sure how they had done it in the past. So, it's a very complicated, Canada, we were going to mention Canada. What did we do about Canada in the past? So what did they do? They looked it up in Lostpedia. So what happened was the authors of the show, the writers, actually used the wiki as their main repository of information about the show. And in fact, some things that the wiki community noticed about the show, they then wrote into the show as further plot elements and so forth. This is really interesting. Does anybody know what it is about Canada? It turns out whenever someone mentions Canada in Lost, they're lying. And that was something that the fans had noticed, that the writers probably didn't initially intend, but they looked it up and they read it in Lostpedia, and so they continued that tradition. So throughout the entire series, whenever someone mentions Canada, they're lying, which is a pretty amazing little piece of trivia. But I think it's quite an interesting thing when we think about television, we think about media. One of the things that I argue is that television has gotten a lot smarter in the last 30 years. If you think about older TV shows, they were very simple shows, very simple plot lines, up to today when you have incredibly rich, dramas with multiple characters and lots of literary allusions and things like that. And one of the reasons that's possible is that people who are really into the show can actually really dig in deep. There's a lot to dig into, and they can use the internet to help them learn the things they need to know to really understand the show. So I think that's pretty amazing cultural development. I want to leave some time for questions, so I'll just stop here and say thank you for your time, and then we can have some questions. Great, and I actually have no idea how this is going to work, something like that. Somebody maybe.
We have few questions from our online application.
Okay, so questions from the online application. We're getting to be very modern here, aren't we?
Okay, one of them is, what was your first contribution to Wikipedia? What kind of article?
What was my first contribution to Wikipedia? So one of the interesting things about Wikipedia is that in the very early days, some of the history got lost. So we don't know what was the first article in Wikipedia. We just don't know. But we do know the first words because I typed them. I installed the software, and because I'm a geek and a programmer, although not a very good one, I typed "Hello World," and hit send, and that was the first words in Wikipedia, which is quite apt if you stop and think about it.
Some viewers are interested whether you know some celebrities that write Wikipedia.
Do I know some celebrities who write in Wikipedia? Well, I know some celebrities who privately admitted that they changed their entry. Yeah, I mean, there are some interesting people. So, I mean, one, and unfortunately I can't recall the name right now, but not a celebrity unless you're a mathematician, and then a big celebrity, is that a very active contributor to the mathematics articles in Wikipedia is a Fields Medal winner, and that's pretty amazing. So, and there have been, Nobel Prize winners who've edited, maybe just a little bit here and there. But in terms of celebrities really actively editing on a regular basis and being part of the community, I don't know of any, really, unfortunately. They probably would just kind of lay low because they just want to get on with writing about Buffy the Vampire Slayer or whatever.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience?
Hello.
Hello.
What do you think about Google plans steal content from Wikipedia?
About Google's
plans steal content from Wikipedia?
What do I think about Google's plan to steal content from Wikipedia? I think it's great. We don't care at all. So everything in Wikipedia is freely licensed, and so we invite people to take it and reuse it. We want them to link back to us, and they do. Google will do this. And certainly the type of content that is this new thing they're talking about, the knowledge graph or whatever. This content is facts. It's facts like what is the population of Lithuania and things like that. Facts are not copyrightable, and I think facts should not be copyrightable. I mean, it might be great for us if we said, actually, we've changed our mind and Wikipedia now owns all human knowledge, but in fact we don't. We wrote it down to give it to you, and we love it. The better people are able to use Wikipedia through APIs, through machine reading of various data structures in Wikipedia to make other products and other things more intelligent, that's just part of our mission. So we're quite excited about that kind of thing. The concern that some people have is that whereas right now people might type, what is the population of Lithuania, and they would then get the article about Lithuania, click and read it at Wikipedia. Now they'll just get the answer directly from Google without having to visit us. If we were driven by ad revenue, we would probably care about that a lot. We'd be very upset. We'd say, oh, wow, we're going to lose a lot of ad revenue. But we don't care about ad revenue. Actually, it just means people are going to get their facts from Wikipedia and we're one step quicker. So for us, this is completely fine. Okay?
Anyone else?
Yes, hello. I want to ask how much Lithuanians donate for Wikipedia, for example, in previous year. Hi, I'm here.
Yeah. There you are. Right. I actually don't have any idea, and I regret that. So all of that data is published and publicly available. If you want to send me an email, I can look it up for you. In general, I would say that amongst all the countries of the world, the U.S. is the largest donor, in part because it's a big country, but also because tax laws really favor charitable giving in the U.S. But throughout all of Europe, there's a lot of donations. But in terms of the total dollar amount or euro amount, I don't know off the top of my head. Sorry.
One more question. How do you think WikiLeaks, the same brain is using, is a problem for Wikipedia or this?
Yeah. So the question is, WikiLeaks with the same, similar brand name, is it a problem for Wikipedia? Well, yeah, I would say it is a bit of a problem. The thing is, WikiLeaks is not a wiki. I think when they started, they had the idea of just being a wiki where people could put whatever they wanted. That didn't work out, so they're not a wiki at all. And it has caused a fair amount of confusion in people. We've been very lucky, actually. The press, because they've known us and they've known Wikipedia for a long time, there have been very few, actually, errors in newspapers and things like that. People do generally tend to know the difference. We've had a couple of world leaders who got confused about it. Once President Sarkozy in France pointed at me and said, "And this WikiLeaks thing," and I'm like, "Hey, man, not me." I think I wish that the name was different. I wish it were Open Leaks, or that's one of their competitors now, or something like this, because of that confusion. The one amusing story I have to tell is once I was entering the UK, and if you've ever gone to the UK, you know they much like in the US, they ask lots of stupid questions at the border, and so I had forgotten to write down my occupation, and so they said, "No, what's your occupation?" I just said, "Well, I'm the founder of Wikipedia," and the woman dropped her pin. She's like, "WikiLeaks?" This is when he was, wanted. So yeah, I wish it had a different name, but life goes on.
Hello. Wikipedia is a soft project, and many what you mentioned soft information projects. What you could mention about the projects inspired by Wikipedia but related to other areas like hardware, wiki?
Yeah. Well, so it is interesting. So I wouldn't say many of those projects are directly inspired by Wikipedia per se. Really, I think we're part of a much broader movement, the free software movement, open software movement, the idea of collaboration, and there's some really interesting stuff going on there. I was just reading, actually, you know how Wikipedia is. You go for some legitimate purpose, and then 2 hours later you realize you just wasted 2 hours learning something you didn't actually need to know. But I found this fascinating set of articles about open source machines for building things. And so there's a group, I can't remember the name of the project, but they're trying to create a whole set of machines, everything you would need to build a civilization. So starting from different ways of making bricks and different ways of working metal. I don't even know what they all were. It was really fascinating. And they're publishing all of the plans, under a free license. They don't want to compete on that. They may be for profit because they're going to make machines and sell them for a profit, but they say, we want other people to make machines and sell them too. That's fine with us. I think it's a really interesting thing, and there are a lot of interesting movements of people coming together to design things in remote places and share their work. It's actually interesting, in a lot of cases, they haven't quite hit on the model that we found in software and in the wiki world of free licensing, and so they end up with all kinds of incentive problems and things like that, whereas the free licensing really helps people to collaborate because everybody trusts the situation and they can do what they need to do. So I think there's still huge opportunities and really interesting things. One of the things I'm really interested in, and I think we're going to see a huge amount of in the future, is large-scale collaboration on filmmaking, and particularly animation, because with film, if an actual camera and an actual scene, there's a physical location, everybody needs to be in that spot. But with animation, people can work together collaboratively from all over the globe. The software to do this is getting better and better. The bandwidth for sharing video back and forth is getting better and better. I mean, people right now, if you want to, imagine a site like FARC or one of the meme sites where people copy and Photoshop images and send them on and do things like that. Well, what if we begin to be able to do that with full motion video animation, and you can change how the character moves and what the character says? We've seen a few little hints of this already. I think it's going to be a really big thing as more people get access to that technology, as the technology gets easier to use, and as bandwidth continues to go up. So I think that area is also very interesting. But I think it's really cool, the stuff that's going to happen in the next several years. Okay?
Question in here. I was wondering, is there any kind of monitoring that goes on with Wikipedia? For example, like events in China and stuff. And if there is, where do you draw the line between fact and a lie?
Yes, so what is the monitoring? How do we draw a distinction between fact and lies? So the monitoring all goes on from within the community. The community has a lot of different tools to use to monitor the sites, so ranging from recent changes. So every change that has happened goes on the recent changes page, and there's a lot of people who monitor recent changes to look for vandalism and do really quick response to things. Then every active user has a personal watch list, so that the things that are in your area of interest, you can monitor what's been changed there since the last time you logged in. That's very helpful for sort of longer term, bigger picture changes. And in terms of things like how do you distinguish between truth and lie, we're actually quite old-fashioned in a way and quite conservative about it. What we really look for is good quality sources. If you have one person who says one thing and their source is some random blog nobody's ever heard of, and then somebody who says the opposite thing and they say, well, look, I can cite 8 different newspapers, magazine, here's a peer-reviewed book, we'll say, well, actually that's quite persuasive, and so we try to be quite thoughtful about using the best quality sources that we can. In general, in Wikipedia, you aren't allowed to just go and sort of start posting your opinions. The community reacts quite negatively to that and just pulls it out. We really want verified, factual information, and that's our core technique for doing it. Obviously, it's not perfect. The media gets things wrong, and then Wikipedia gets things wrong because we relied on reliable sources. So one of my big concerns longer term about our culture more broadly is the state of the newspaper industry, that it's been very weak. And what I'm not concerned about, what I would say is, every time you see Obama having a press conference, you'll see 100 journalists in the room. If that number went from 100 down to 50, it wouldn't affect the quality of information we get at all. I mean, 50 is enough to cover every single word the man says in a press conference. What I really worry about is in a small town somewhere where the number of reporters goes from 2 to 1. Then you really start to have a really negative impact on the quality of information people are getting about local politics and things like that. And I think that's really crucial. So I'm excited that finally we're starting to see newspapers wake up and be a little bit smarter about their online business models in the future. But I still think they've got a long way to go to figure things out. So it's a real concern, I think. Okay, it looks like we've got about 2 minutes left, so probably one more question, or 2. I mean, I'm happy to talk all day, but they'll yank me off of here. So whoever's in charge of the mics. Yeah.
Thank you for the answers.
Yes. I said one more.
No, we're out of time.
We're out of time. It says 1 minute and 50 seconds.
We
all right.
have one present.
Oh, we've got a present for me. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Just before you go, all the audience here in Login who've been tweeting and Instagramming you during the speech, we want to help you keep the momentum by giving you this hashtagram of the tweets and Instagrams that mention your name while you were talking here. So something from Vilnius to you. Thank you very much.
Says I should lose weight. He needs a haircut. Thank you. It's really wonderful. Thanks.